Thank you so much. Welcome, everyone. Tonight's presentations are Women Superstars in STEM from the Queens Public Library in honor of Women's History Month. I am Rita Carl, Director of Programming at the Queens Public Library, and I'm joined by Jeffrey Lambert, our Director of Strategic Planning and Operations. We have 5 amazing women this evening who will be sharing their STEM stories, their STEM projects, and answering questions. So if you do have a question, feel free to put it in the chat. This is my introduction from the Queens Public Library. This Women's History Month, Queens Public Library is celebrating change makers, women who have been professional leaders and advocates for a more equitable world. Learn about our special programs and book recommendations and how you can make your own Queens of Queens vision board and much more at queenslib.org/WHM 2024. Filing your taxes can be overwhelming and complicated, but it doesn't have to be. Queens Public Library is partnering with organizations to offer free tax counseling for New Yorkers at several Queens Public Library locations. Download our tax help brochure at queenslib.org/tax help to learn more. And we have created a brand new QPL Teens Instagram page. So help us to celebrate the amazing teens of our Queens Public Library community while you learn more about everything we do for teens at the Queens Public Library, the Teens in Queens. Check it out and follow us at instagram.com/QPL Teens. Thank you. Our first presenter is Dr. Latasia Jones. She's a pioneering neuroscientist and STEM advocate recognized for groundbreaking research and promoting diversity in STEM. As the first African-American with a PhD in biomedical sciences from Florida State University, she uses her story and excitement for science to educate youth, often initiating global STEM initiatives and establishing mentors all over the world. And that is how I met her, on one of those amazing webinars. Dr. Jones works at the National Institutes of Health, and she founded STEMming While Black, an initiative promoting diversity in STEM. And you can learn more about her work at heydrtay.com, and I'll put that into the chat. And Dr. Jones, you may begin your story. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rita, and thank you for inviting me here today. I love opportunities like this to share my STEM journey and hopefully inspire somebody along the line. And I definitely want to hear the stories of the rest of the women on the panel, one of which I've already heard, but I'd love to hear stories from other women I've never met before and how you paved the way in your sector of STEM. So hi to everyone who's here for the first time, and a lot of you, if not all of you, the first time meeting Dr. Jones and myself. I also go by Dr. Tay. If you've heard anything about me, that's my brand. I am going to share my screen. So I know that we have been tasked with the challenge of telling you about our stories in as few slides as possible. So hopefully I'm able to do this while keeping you entertained and keeping your interest and your energy up. So as stated in the bio, I am Dr. Latasia Jones. I'm going to go over quickly a little bit about my career journey and how I've gotten to where I am today. So the things that I wanted to make mention of are some of the inspirations and the motivations that have continued to allow me to go through my journey in STEM. A lot of it has been rooted in my family's support, of course, the role models I've been able to interact with and work with along the way. And of course, my excitement for science itself and the opportunity to explore science in several different ways. And last but not least, me being able to sow the seeds for the next generation. So my STEM outreach and being able to work with younger communities, the youth, and so on. So I'm going to provide a lot of those aspects while I talk to you about my journey in STEM. So this is, although it looks like a busy slide, it is a great summary of me over the last, I don't know how many years, because I'm not going to date myself. I am very young, but still, when I go over this, you're like, how? So I started my academic journey at Virginia State University, which is an HBCU, or historically black college and university, that's in Petersburg, Virginia. And I initially started with the idea of going towards the pre-med route. And I found this opportunity to explore an internship in a research lab at the College of William and Mary during my freshman year. I took the opportunity, even though everybody said, no, we're looking for an upperclassman and you're a freshman. And do you really think you're really that interested in science already? I kept being persistent and asking over and over. No one else applied. So it gave me the opportunity to go into this internship with eyes wide open and bright bushy tail, because I'm completely new to this realm of life and thinking. Just a quick snippet, I didn't even think that I was supposed to be going to college, because originally going through middle school and high school, I thought I was going to be a basketball player. So I had one of those very common stories that every time I talk to my friends about it, they're like, yeah, this happened with me too. I talked too much in a particular class. My report card and my progress reports kept going back home saying I was talking too much. My mom threatened me and told me she was going to take me off the basketball team if I continued to talk too much. And I don't know if you've already seen, I have the gift of gab. So as I continued to talk too much, my mom took me off the basketball team and I had to refocus on that class. My grades came up and everything else. And now we're coming down to who I am today, a person in science. The class that I talked too much in was a science course. So full circle moment. Now I'm going to college and I'm exploring this first internship opportunity. I'm working with microscopic worms and looking at cell cycles and just different ways how your cells divisions can essentially, if there's any mutations in that cycle, it could lead to cancer, right? And I'm working in a lab for the first time, but more importantly, I'm working in a lab that was owned and led by a female scientist. And this was the first scientist that I had ever seen that was a female and interacted with that was a female. When I think of the lead PI or the lead professor for a lab, I think of the person that's going to do the hiring and the firing. So to me, she was the boss, right? And she's like top notch. And it happens to be a female. So it kind of gave me that representation and that sense of a belonging in a field from the beginning. Although she wasn't African-American, it still was seeing that female, which is a very rare thing. And seeing a female lead of a lab was amazing to me. She helped me through my experience in this internship, which I stayed in until my junior year, to stay motivated in science. So I went back, I started a research opportunity at Virginia State University that essentially became my master's research project as well. During my master's years, I take a trip to Ghana, which is in the third picture here. I teach science, English and math, and I loved being able to provide little hands-on activities and pictures and stuff that related to the curriculum. It inspired me to want to do those things more in life. I said the only way to continue to do these things and for people to stop telling me no was to have something associated with my name and a background in my education that would make it a little bit more challenging for them to reject whatever proposal I put in front of them. So I decided to earn my PhD. And that's ultimately the biggest reason why I wanted to earn it, was to be able to say and do the things that I want to do without as many challenges and roadblocks in my way. I went to Florida State University, where I started a research project that integrated molecular biology and neuroscience within the questions that we were asking and exploring, looking at muscular and movement disorders. 5 years down the line, I graduated as the first African-American to earn my PhD in biomedical sciences at Florida State University in the College of Medicine. And that set me off for a different route as far as using my story as my purpose, but also allowing that STEM outreach that I really always wanted to tap into to be the thing that guided me, while still remembering my love for science, my love for working with my community, my academic journey, and so on. Fast forward, I'm not going to give you too many details. I started some amazing research at Children's National Hospital, working in autism research and more behavioral disorders, and then realized that I don't necessarily want to stay in the lab for the rest of my life. But for a lot of people don't know that scientists can exist in many different spaces, not just within a laboratory setting. And for me, I went through separation anxiety because from freshman year all the way to my postdoc, which is the time after you receive your PhD, I had only been in a lab. So I didn't know how to exist as a scientist outside of the laboratory setting. So I decided to do that very daunting thing, apply for positions elsewhere. I landed a great position at the American Society for Microbiology, which started off as an ethics fellowship, where essentially I was looking at the articles published by scientists to see if there was any type of misconduct, plagiarism, data image fabrication, and so on, and trying to reteach or re-educate those individuals to make sure they know that the things that they were doing could come across as them manipulating data rather than putting out a very trustworthy and fair representation of the science coming from their lab. So the role was more educational than anything else. A lot of the exchanges I had was with PIs who did nothing wrong. It's just they were trying to maybe make their image look better for their data rather than just giving us that raw image that we could truly trust. A few years after working in that position, I said I miss being in neuroscience. Found an amazing position at NIH after exploring some of my other initiatives. One mentioned being STEMming While Black, where I was putting panels together, related somewhat like this one, and having people, provide advice. Well, now I work as a scientific review officer, where I put panels together to allow neuroscientists to essentially score the applications for other neuroscientists who are proposing to hopefully receive funding for their research and start their careers. The majority of the grants that I oversee right now are training grants, and they have a diversity aspect to them. So these are amazing opportunities to kind of even out the playing field, but also allow for opportunity across the board for neuroscientists who just want to really develop their careers, whether they're graduate students, early career, postdocs, or whatever else. This is the position that I'm granted with at this point, where I'm literally the youngest one in the room, just making sure that there's quality review of these applications.
I'm giving you a 1-minute warning.
Perfect, because I'm almost at the end. But the thing that I like the most out of everything else is being able to be a role model and mentor to students and to, everyone on an international and national level. I love talking about my journey, but also what I loved about being a scientist and the things that I do now, inspiring the next generation and then keeping them encouraged through many different avenues. I'm showing pictures of my statue here in the IFTIN initiative, which is an initiative of 140 plus women in STEM sharing their stories similar to what I do, and a lot of different other avenues in which I've done live experiments, flown a plane to increase representation in pilots, and so on. So these are the things that I love to do the most outside of everything else that I've talked about. Thank you.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. Latasia and I worked on an NSF grant together, working to inspire more Black girls. Sorry, that was your timer. You finished early. And so I'm just so pleased that she could join us tonight. So please, if you have any questions, just open your chat. The meeting group chat's right there. Jeff is monitoring that, so you can put your questions in. And we're going to move on to our second presenter. So our second presenter tonight is Dr. Adrienne Stevenson. She's a proud graduate of Lincoln University in PA and Florida A&M University, both HBCUs, where she received a BA in chemistry and an MS and a PhD in pharmacology toxicology. I should have practiced. She currently serves as the Associate Dean in the Graduate School at Florida State University and previously served as the STEM Center Director at Tallahassee Community College. And she worked as a Science Specialist and STEM Coordinator at the Florida Department of Education. You can see why we invited her here tonight. She is dedicated to changing the face of STEM by engaging youth and young adults in STEM through exposure and engagement. She's a proud member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, Inc., and lives by the anonymous quote, "I have been given this mountain to show others it can be moved." Welcome, Adrienne.
All right. Good evening, everyone. So Rita, first I want to say thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of this amazing panel of dynamic women in STEM. I think my STEM superpower is my connection to dynamic women in STEM, women that come from different backgrounds, engage in STEM in different spaces, and the ability for us to be able to collaborate and work together to use our backgrounds and our experiences to educate and expose young people to all of the amazing things that they may be able to do in life and in STEM spaces as well. So thank you again for the invitation. Right. So I am going to start by talking just a little bit about my STEM journey, and then kind of moving into very similar to Dr. Jones, the excitement that I have for the work that I get to do in STEM education with STEM outreach. So the pictures that you see on the screen are a picture of me as a little girl. I have 3 older sisters and 1 younger brother. And like many people who are very close in age to their siblings, my parents oftentimes dressed my sister and I alike. So in the first picture, you see me in a strawberry shortcake dress, and my sister had on a little blueberry dress. And I don't think I was so pleased with having to wear an outfit that was that similar to my sister that day. So that's the face that you get as a little girl. The next picture is a picture of me graduating from Lincoln University in Pennsylvania. A little known Black history fact, Lincoln University is the first historically Black college and university. And I finished up as a chem major at Lincoln University. And when I go to the next slide, I'll tell you a little bit about me getting started in STEM at Lincoln. The next picture is a picture of me getting hooded during my PhD graduation from Florida A&M University. And then the picture on the very far right is a picture from a couple of years ago where I was invited to confer the graduate degrees at Florida State University. So I never thought that I would be on stage conferring the degrees to other graduate students. And so that is a picture of me asking all of the graduate students to stand and then getting to wear my robe from my graduation as a PhD while I conferred the other degrees. As Rita mentioned, I live by the quote, "I have been given this mountain to show others it can be moved," because that's what I believe. I believe that every day the work that I do, me doing this work is a representation to other people that guess what, you can do it too, right? I believe that if people can see it, they can be it. And so my representation in all of the spaces that I operate in support that anonymous quote. So my STEM journey, I am a native of Washington, D.C., a proud Washingtonian. As Rita mentioned, I am a 3-time graduate of historically Black colleges and universities. I did my bachelor's degree in chemistry at Lincoln University. I started off as a computer science major. I just knew that I was going to be a computer programmer, and computer programming was not my jam. But I had a couple of guys in my freshman class that were competing with me in all of my chemistry classes. And so the chair of the chemistry department at the time pulled me to the side to say, "I think chemistry is your thing." And I fought it for a long time because I really, really, really wanted to be a computer programmer. But Pascal and C++ took me out. And so I could do chemistry with my eyes closed, loved organic chemistry, P-Chem, biochem, anything chem. And so I pursued the major in chemistry and then went on to do a doctoral degree in pharmacology and toxicology in the pharmaceutical sciences program at Florida A&M University. In between there, I had an opportunity to gain experience in a number of internships. So I interned at Los Alamos National Lab. I interned at Kennedy Space Center, interned at the Food and Drug Administration in Philadelphia, and interned at Hershey Medical Center, Penn State. And so that is where I got my feet wet and really kind of started to think about this whole research thing and being involved as a scientist in a STEM space. From there, as Rita mentioned, I went on to work for the Florida Department of Education, working alongside teachers to really help them think about teaching science from a place of practice, right? And helping kids understand this is what science looks and feels like, in addition to learning the theory of it in the book. I went on to TCC as a STEM Center director. This is where I fell in love with working with students. And so I had no idea what administration was. I was a NASA fellow during my doctoral degree. I was a Harriet Jenkins NASA Fellow, and there was a woman, I have to say her name. Oftentimes we have to say these people's names, the people that are our role models. Dr. Mabel Matthews was an executive director of educational programs at NASA. And every year she would bring all of the Harriet Jenkins NASA Fellows together at a particular NASA headquarters. And every year I got to watch this woman work, right? I watched the way she moved. I watched the way she interacted with the fellows. And I said, I want to do what she does. And I didn't know what that was. I didn't know what a career in administration was. And so this was my opportunity to really kind of figure out, as Dr. Jones mentioned, what does science look like outside of formal STEM spaces or labs, right? And I didn't know that you could be a scientist in an administrative space. And so every year I went back yearning to learn more about how this woman engaged and interacted as this administrator at NASA. And so that was my first touch of being an administrator, and I was on this path to do what she did. And so I became, again, the director of the STEM Center at Tallahassee Community College, and then an assistant dean and now an associate dean in the graduate school at Florida State University. I'm also the owner of Color in STEM, a LLC dedicated to providing consulting services to people who have an interest in STEM learning, STEM education. And then Dr. Jones and I are co-founders of Changing Faces, Inc., a nonprofit dedicated to educating, empowering, and exposing youth to all things related to STEM. So here is a picture or a number of pictures of me engaging in STEM spaces. Every picture here speaks to STEM outreach, speaks to me as a scholar, as a scientist, and as a servant leader. That's one thing I have come to really kind of embrace, is those intersecting identities. There was a time when I shied away from being one because it was kind of frowned upon in academia to do a lot of things related to service when you really are supposed to be operating as a scholar. But I have become very comfortable in walking in my purpose as a scientist, as a scholar, and as a servant leader. And so these are pictures of me with many of the scholars that I work with today. I know some people are saying, if you are an administrator, then, what does this whole science or STEM thing have to do with anything? And again, my training is in neuropharmacology and toxicology. So every day I get to engage with students, graduate students from all walks of life, international students, students from different backgrounds. And then I get to go out and be a role model for them. I get to be a part of their growth and development. I think that one of the things that I love most is being able to help them see their potential and then to operate and walk in it. And so that's very exciting to me. So these are a few pictures of me operating in STEM spaces and with my students from all different STEM backgrounds. Here is another picture you'll see in the top right-hand corner. Dr. Jones and I are in Baltimore working with some young ladies to engage them and expose them to STEM. And all of the women that you see on the front row are women in STEM spaces and in STEM fields that were invited to serve as role models. The picture at the bottom of the screen is what I get most excited about every year. I work with Florida A&M University, Tallahassee Community College, and Florida State University to bring together over 200 girls from K-12 spaces to expose them to women in STEM. We just did it last week on Thursday, Leap Day. So our theme was Leap into STEM. And we had almost 200 girls from K-12 spaces there, networking at different tables and meeting mentors, women in STEM from various backgrounds. So those are the pictures that you see here. And then last but not least are some of the successes that I've had in STEM. And so in 2020, I was named one of the 25 women to know in Tallahassee because of the work that I do in STEM. Latasia and I, Dr. Jones and I, have done STEMing in the kitchen, teaching kids about science through cooking. We've done STEM sports camps, teaching kids about STEM through sports. And then one of the most recent things was the Black Sci Girls project that I got a chance to be a part of with Dr. Jones and Rita. That was pretty amazing. And so this is what I wanted to share mostly about my journey in STEM. I did want to leave one piece of advice for young people, and that is to own your learning curve. That has helped me to be confident in my walk as a servant leader and a scientist. And what that means is that every space that you walk into, there's going to be something you don't know. Own it. Remember that there's a lot that you bring. Own it. So walk in confidence, knowing that you come with a lot, and be okay with knowing that there are things that you don't know that are not rocket science for you to learn. And so that is the advice that I want to leave for young people that may watch this now or later on, and to think about that as they consider the things that they want to do in the future with their careers. That helped me as a scientist at the Department of Education, working with people who all had backgrounds in K-12 certification, and coming there as a scientist, the only scientist on the team, and feeling like I didn't know what I didn't know, right? And I had a good friend who was a graduate student with me at FAMU who said, you need to own your learning curve. And I've taken that with me in every position that I've gone in beyond that. And that has helped me to walk in confidence, knowing that, hey, no, I don't know this, but it's not rocket science. I can learn it. So that's what I want to leave you with. And I am so excited to hear about the other women on the panel's journey in STEM, and then to engage in conversation for Q&A with the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrienne. That's wonderful. And thanks, Kylie, and for all the people on the chat. We'll get everyone's websites up at the end. So thank you all. Our next presenter, let's welcome Rosalba Guitarano. And I probably didn't say your last name right. So you can correct me. Rosalba is a science education outreach coordinator at NASA's Langley Research Center, where her work includes the Globe Mission Earth program, offering guidance and training to teachers across the United States. Rosalba engages diverse communities as part of NASA's science education team. Originally from Mexico City, Rosalba started her NASA journey 6 years ago. Only 6 years ago. Rosalba's contributions towards a more accessible workplace have earned her accolades, including the NASA Agency Honor Award for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. Now that's a medal. Rosalba lives in Queens, go Queens, and has worked with the New York City Public Schools, the New York Hall of Science, the Queens Public Library now, and other after-school organizations introducing NASA and STEM programs to teachers and underserved students. Rosalba, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Rita. It is such an honor to be part of this panel. I'm going to attempt to share my screen. I think it's showing now.
Yep.
Great. So hello, everyone. Again, my name is Rosalba Guitarano. My pronouns are she, her, and I am so grateful for the opportunity to be with you all. So first, I want to share with you a little bit about me. So as Rita mentioned, I am originally from Mexico City. I moved to the United States on my own, and so most of the family that I grew up with is still in Mexico. My mom moved just last year, finally, so that makes me very happy. But yeah, the rest of my family still in Mexico. I have a picture of them on the upper right-hand corner for you. Turns out that a couple years after I moved to the United States, I learned that I actually have 3 half-brothers here in the United States. So if I had more time, I would tell you about that story, but I just want to tell you that I am so happy to have these 3 brothers. They're really cool, and so I have a great relationship with them. Like Rita said, I live in Queens. So this is a super, especially exciting event for me because I have been in the Queens Library myself a lot of times with my son too. So I have lived in Queens for 15 years. And I think the most important part about me is that I am a mom. I am the mother of a now 16-year-old boy who is the love of my life. And so I'm sharing also a picture with him on the lower right-hand corner. So, as we said before, I'm originally from Mexico City, so I'm an immigrant. I'm an English language learner. And so I can share with you that my first few weeks in the United States were particularly challenging. I was working, at that time, I was working in an IT help desk. And the first few weeks, I really could not understand anything. Like the phone would ring and I would be like, please somebody like help me, like just passing the phone. It was very, very stressful. I think I can also say I still struggle sometimes. There are still some phrases that people will say even up to date that I am like, what does that mean? Or sometimes I still don't know how to pronounce a word, so I still make mistakes. But I am very, very proud of being bicultural and of course of being bilingual. And something that I really like sharing, especially with students, is that I got my first NASA internship, not despite of not being an English native speaker, but because I am a Spanish native speaker. So my mentor, my first NASA mentor, was actually looking for somebody who could speak Spanish, write Spanish, and understand the Latin American culture. So I truly got at NASA because of that. And so, and I am still here. And a lot of the work that I still do at NASA has to do with instructional materials in Spanish, actually. So when I don't understand something or when I still don't know how to pronounce a word, I just ask. So I keep asking questions, I get help, and I just keep learning every day. As for my academic background, I did my bachelor's in electronics and communications engineering, still in Mexico City at Tecnológico de Monterrey. Then once I was already in New York, I did my master's in information systems at Pace University. Then I did my master's in education with bilingual certification at the New York Institute of Technology. And that school is amazing for me because that is, well, all of them are, but this one particularly, that is how I knew that NASA had something to do with education. I was doing my master's degree, pursuing my master's in education at NYIT, when one day I got an email asking me to fill out this application to spend 1 week of professional development at NASA Glenn Research Center in Cleveland, Ohio. And of course, when I read that, I was like, this is a phishing attack, a scam, like it's a joke. But I contacted my professors and they were like, no, like this is true. Like there is this opportunity, we're applying, we selected you and other 4 students. We would love for you to go to this thing. So I filled out my application, got selected, and I spent a week there. And after that, once I knew that there was a lot that had to do with STEM and education and engagement for students at NASA, I also knew that there were internship opportunities. And that's how I got my first NASA internship that I was talking about before, in great part because I am a Spanish speaker. And I am currently pursuing a doctorate in instructional design and technology. I am hoping that I will earn this degree in December next year. I'm working very hard, so I hope that will happen. I'll let you know. I'm also going to share about my hobbies and my interests. So as I said before, I am super happy to be bilingual, but I like languages in general. I have studied a little bit of German and American Sign Language and Japanese. And so I am back to studying Japanese. I had studied when I was a teenager, and now I'm back to it. So I am very excited about that. I also love playing board games. I am also a huge advocate for accessibility. I am always trying to learn more about how to make instructional materials more accessible. So I actually go to the library too to learn about that. I sign up for every workshop that I can. I read a lot about it. And so what I also do is share with my team about accessibility. So everything that I learn, I share with others so that our lesson plans, and anything that we create to engage students can be as accessible as possible for all students with or without disabilities. And I have had the opportunity to share about these things also with the whole agency, with the whole NASA agency, which has been really exciting. And of course, I also love food. And so I figured I would also share a picture of one of my favorite foods, which is Mexican tamales. That's important. And so, yes, so I had the opportunity to work at NASA, which is a dream come true. And I am sharing with you a picture where I was surrounded by a group of students at the Lexington School for the Deaf, which is a school also in Queens, New York. And so as part of my work as a science education outreach coordinator with the Earth Science Education team at NASA Langley, I work every day with teachers and with students, and that is amazing. So I do a lot of webinars, a lot of workshops in English and in Spanish. And as Rita also mentioned, a lot of what I do has to do with the GLOBE program. GLOBE stands for Global Learning and Observations to Benefit the Environment. And so this is an international science and education program that engages students, teachers, and the public in general in contributing to Earth science by making observations of different aspects of our planet. And my team in particular does a lot with clouds. So if you submit your cloud observations that you make from the ground to my team then compares those observations to what satellites see at the same time in the same location. And so we can even send you an email where you can compare what you saw from the ground with what the satellite saw from above, which is really cool. And so maybe in the chat, I will share the app that you can use to make observations and help my team with your observations of clouds. And also as part of the GLOBE program, I am part of the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Accessibility Working Group. So I have the chance to work with people from around the world in also trying to make this program as accessible and inclusive as possible. And I know that we don't have much time, so I'm going to finish there. But thank you again for considering me to be part of this, and I am super excited to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rosalva. Please put your how people can get involved with Globe Clouds in the chat. That's just wonderful. I know that when I was in my former position, we working with PBS, we did an episode that you can see online that actually features my NASA data and some of the team that used to run the cloud outreach. So I just threw that link in there for anyone who's interested. And we're going to go to our next presenter. Our next presenter is Kellyanne LeConte, who has a passion for broadening participation in science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. And at the University Corporation for Atmospheric Research, Kellyanne collaborates with subject matter experts to provide training in the environmental sciences. And we know that's really, really important, including through online self-guided instruction, which is a pretty exciting thing to do. In addition to being a Fulbright Global Scholar, Kellyanne has a master's degree in environmental science and engineering from Caltech and has performed astrobiology research in NASA. And I want to add that Kellyanne worked with a large network of librarians before this position that she has now. So one of the things I thought of was, well, that's really appropriate for our Queens Public Library group. So Kellyanne, the floor is yours.
Thanks so much for that lovely introduction, Rita, and thank you also for having me on this wonderful panel. It's a pleasure to be here with you all. Again, my name is Kellyanne LeConte, and my pronouns are she, hers. And for a few minutes here, I'd like to take you on a look back at my own STEM journey. And that journey has almost always included some aspect of art and design. So I've got STEAM as my journey here. And I decided I wanted to be a paleontologist when I was 3. And that stuck until my fourth grade teacher introduced our class to constellations, at which point I decided I would dig dinosaur bones by the day and study the cosmos at night. And then it even went further from there. I just ran out of STEM topics and hours in the day as I've got along on my journey. So I'll take you on a tour of a few of these highlights. But really, this is the process of learning more and more about STEM has taken me on places I could never even have dreamed of my wildest dreams as a grade schooler. So I want to give you a couple insights in that, along with some just a few key areas where it made it possible for me to succeed as a woman in STEM. First of these is to be challenged. And this is true even if the path is not easy. I found that it leads to amazing opportunities. This is especially true, I think, when it comes to taking math. All along the way, as it gets harder and harder to tackle those math subjects, it can be really difficult to feel like you belong there or to get a good grade. And for some of us, it really just does take more time to study things like math than other subjects. One of the things that worked really well for me was to find others who were in the same place where they were kind of grappling with the content, and we worked together and we tackled it together. And I had such a wonderful experience doing that especially with my grad school math study group. For me, having that math just on my transcript was really helpful as my interests changed across these different STEM fields. And as I watched the job market change, I could move between those disciplines because I was familiar with the language of the STEM disciplines, and that language being math. Now, as Rita mentioned, I have a job as an instructional designer where I'm using programming skills and engineering techniques to create online learning experiences. And having practice in math really helped me think about logic and have confidence to jump into complexity and tackle things of that nature. The next thing that served me well was being brave. And all along my STEM journey, I've had to be brave, but at the same time, I've also had champions supporting me at all points in my STEM journey. And for example, my middle school teacher told me that girls don't do well in math. And at that point, thankfully, my parents stepped in and they were able to convince the teacher and the administrators that I should actually be allowed to proceed to the next level and take geometry. And that was wonderful for me, in spite of the horror stories they were saying about how I would be trembling under the stairs in fright from the stress of that experience. Is actually my favorite math class ever. So do encourage you to be brave, but also to have that help from others. As I've gone through my career journey and over the last dozen years, I had to also teach myself social science so that I could research ways to make STEM learning more accessible to more people. And I wanted to give a huge shout out to our wonderful hostess, Rita Carl. You have been such a generous font of knowledge and expertise in helping me understand how to help others learn about STEM and STEAM. So I thank you. And today, even with my years of experience, I do still find myself working harder to maintain my credibility in spite of my gender. So for example, we'll have discussions, meetings where we're making key decisions. And I've really come to appreciate when I have colleagues come in to revocalize one of my ideas and make sure that I'm being heard. This is just a small move, but it really helps make sure that my voice and everyone's voice is being heard, even if there are voices that are deeper and louder than mine in the room. So for all of us, I really encourage you to be a champion for the women and girls in your life. It'll take all genders to make STEM a richer and more inclusive experience. And finally, I encourage you to be curious. Curiosity has led me on many STEM adventures. I've been able to do wonderful things like research at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory on astrobiology, and also doing things like field work at this location behind me here, which is just a screenshot, but wonderful places. And over the last 20 years, my career has really shifted toward focusing on how people learn STEM and providing resources and training to help people pursue their STEM interests. And one of the most amazing parts of that journey was being able to live overseas as a Fulbright Global Scholar. And as Rita mentioned, I had such a pleasure of working with librarians, both within the US and across the world, as well as STEM professionals. And I traveled and lived in Australia and the UK to learn more about their efforts in helping people learn STEM, and also bring some of the wonderful innovations from US libraries and what's going well so that we could all learn and move forward together. And in my research overseas, I've seen so many wonderful examples of how this curiosity has come to play in the library. So I could be just a family who happens to come across a program on some Saturday afternoon about, say, geology, or it might be a regular after-school activity where teens are working with professionals to be able to code and create something of their own in a coding platform. Each community has had different needs and different resources, but caring adults are coming together to make a difference for the learners of all ages and helping them follow their curiosity to new places. And I just want to give you a little insight from my travels, at least from my perspective. Our world and all of the universe has so much to offer all of us for you to be able to pursue your interests. And I just wanted to thank you again. Thank you all for your time. And thanks, Rita, again, for including me here with this wonderful panel. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I love hearing all of your stories. And it's so interesting to me to see everyone's journey and how art and math and chemistry and science are interwoven into your journey. And I think your presentation, Kellyanne, is a great transition to our last presenter, a dear colleague of mine and one of my sheroes, along with all of you, Dr. Jancy McPhee, a neuroscientist, space life scientist, science communicator, and executive director of SciArt Exchange. And we'll put the website into the chat for you. Jancy got her BA in neurobiology and behavior from Cornell University and her PhD in biophysics from Brandeis University. Her program, which she's going to talk about tonight, is called SciArt, and it offers global science integrated with art activities to enhance space engagement and education, foster science and technology innovation, and promote collaboration to solve hard challenges in space and on Earth. The International Humans in Space Art program encourages people of all ages, cultures, and backgrounds to communicate their visions of the future of human space exploration and development through multidisciplinary art contests and tours. And her outside hobbies include participating in music and theater, something else we have in common. So Jancy, the floor is yours.
Thanks so much, Rita. And I am honored to be on this panel with all of these amazing sheroes. And I'm also a bit humbled to be going last here because there's quite a bit of duplication in what we're doing here, and a lot of good messages that we can keep repeating for the other young women and also the men who are embarking on their challenging journeys. So thanks again for inviting me. Happy Women's History Month, everyone. And I'm going to start right off with my most important role model, and that is my mother. It was just me and mom when I was growing up. No other brothers and sisters, no dad. And she taught me how important it was to follow your passions and never give up and to work hard. And I take that message with me every day. And so I thank her for that. And she also had her own passions. She was very interested in literature and the arts and music. And even though we had to take advantage of all the free events, she made sure that I went to all of the art museums and the free concerts. And I went to a public school, and we were very lucky to have free theater and music programs as well. But she also encouraged me to follow my own additional passions. I was very observant of the natural world, and I had great public school science teachers, and I was very lucky in that regard, and I am also grateful to them as well. But that posed this kind of laughable problem, which is when I went to college, I wasn't quite sure which path to go down, because any choice that I made was going to potentially close a door in another direction. So I was that little girl who didn't know what she wanted to be when she grew up. But eventually, like many of the people on this panel today, I decided that neuroscience was the best compromise for me. And that was because that allowed me to understand our nervous system and how it encodes our thoughts and our feelings and our emotions, allows us to be creative and to be people. And I also loved biochemistry and cellular and molecular biology. And so my laboratory research experience was to study the key molecules that make your nervous system work, and to actually change their structure and then see how that was related to their function. And also, again, like some of the other panelists, I went through quite an interesting journey to try to understand how I could continue following my passion for science, but also possibly find a role that allowed me to use some of my people skills and my interest in people. And like many of the other ladies have already said, there was nobody there to help guide me. The only mentors I had knew how to be laboratory academic researchers. So I had to find my own way. And I did eventually find my way to NASA. I'll fully disclose that. And that is where I've met a lot of these ladies in the past. And that began a journey of basically being the person who helped foster partnerships between different people who are interested in keeping humans healthy and safe on long duration space exploration missions. And what you don't know here is that this is a room full of people from many different countries coming together to think about how to protect the human body in space so that we can go on further and further into space. And it is an incredibly cool time to be working in space, because not only are we doing interesting things in orbit around the Earth, but we are also going back to the moon to live and work. And what we learn there is going to take us further to Mars and beyond. And so it is just a fascinating time. If you don't already like space, I hope you're going to like it by the end of this panel. There is so much room for everybody and every type of person to be engaged. And just our lunar mission looks really different now than it did in the 1960s. We are sending more diverse people to the moon to live and work and do important science, more science than we did the first time we went in the 1960s and the 1970s. People of different races, genetic backgrounds, different countries, different sexes. And that is an amazing turn in diversity in space exploration. And if you don't know anything about Artemis, You should also look up the Artemis Accords because there are at least 36 countries signed up to explore space peacefully together as humanity in the future. And it, again, talk about change. This is an exciting time, but it's also an important time because more and different kinds of people are flying in space. There are commercial companies, where there were 5 space agencies 20 years ago when Rita and I were first working together. There are now 50 space agencies. And there are commercial companies taking people up, and they're flying all different kinds of people from different backgrounds and experiences. And that means that space is for everybody. There are going to be more people living and working in space, and we have to keep them all safe. And that is part of what we are doing as a broader community. And there's a role for scientists and engineers of all backgrounds to do that, but not just scientists and engineers. And this was just to remind me to let you know that space is hazardous and there's a lot that we have to do to keep everybody safe in space. And anytime you want to talk about that, reach out to me. This is to remind me that it's not just about science and technology, though. That with all of this change going on, all of this enabling many different kinds of people to explore space, we also have to change a lot. There are ethical questions, political questions, strategies. What will we do on these missions to the moon and Mars? How are we going to support a very complicated ecosystem in orbit now around the Earth? Will we be able to deal with pollution? Will we be able to deal with the economic challenges? So much is going on. And that is when I started to reach back to my earlier self, my dual self that is very interested in what makes people think. How do we talk about science and space? How do we learn how to collaborate better as teammates? How do we encourage ourselves to think creatively? And this was a pivotal moment for me, not just moving into the sciences, but also moving slightly away from the sciences. And again, I didn't have support for that. And it was very scary for me. Kellyanne was talking about her challenges with math. I found accounting was just really awful. But despite that, I opened a nonprofit, and that is Sired Exchange. And we are working very hard to combine multimedia artwork with space and science and technology to tell the story of space exploration, make everyone around the world and from all these different backgrounds to feel welcome to become a part of the future of space exploration. And some of the things we're most well known for is to collect through virtual access multimedia artwork about the future of space exploration so that we story tell about the future, and then also use all that artwork in displays and live performances in as many places around the world so that the artwork is now getting people more and more interested in learning more of the STEM, all the STEM that has to evolve to support this future in space exploration. And we don't have time for this, but we have an open activity right now to encourage people to create visual art about their ideal community in space. And happy to invite people to do that. And in the interest of time, oops, I need to move really fast. Following your passions and being creative is hard. So I wanted to leave a couple of tips as well. For me, it's not the numbers of success. It's the individual impacts that you make along the way. And although with the help of many people, our nonprofit has has reached a lot of people. It's the individuals that are important. So I love sharing the story of my adventure, but the really important thing to remember is that being creative is hard. So you must not give up. Pull on your inner stubborn self, your inner superhero, and keep it up. There's nothing magical about the women on this panel. We have gotten support from others and kept with it. And you don't need to do it by yourself. Yes, here's my superhero cape. We can all help each other find our inner superheroes to follow our passions. And together we are more powerful. So let's do this together. Let's be change makers, all of us, and work together. And thank you for your time. I hope that wasn't too fast or too slow. So thank you.
I'm muted. Thank you so much. That was wonderful. I think it was a great way to end. It's really exciting. I've put a bunch of links in the chat, but I did see 2 questions, and Jeff, I'm not sure if there are any others, but we have about 15 minutes. And so these are open questions. So anyone on the panel who might like to answer this. So thankful for this program. How did you handle obstacles or setbacks in your career or in your life? Something that you could share. We've all had them.
Who's that directed at? The whole panel?
The whole panel. So Latasia, did you want to take it?
Sure. So I think it's a step-by-step process, right? Like a lot of times people say, be courageous, speak up, speak for yourself, advocate for yourself. But at the beginning for me, especially being in spaces where I was by myself, the only African-American, the only female, even a lot of times being the only person that wanted to explore science, right? Especially in my family where there's no other scientists in my family. So being in those situations where, you know, people question you or they doubt you or being discriminated against, having those microaggressions and so on. At the beginning, when I was a freshman, I didn't know how to deal with that. So I didn't, maybe, you know, we could say maybe you weren't courageous at that time. Maybe you didn't have it in you to advocate for yourself or to form allyship with people who could help you, you know, speak up for yourself. So I will say that it was a process. So at the beginning, I didn't do too much of that. And then later on, I realized if you don't stick up for yourself, there's no one else is going to want to do it because they don't even realize half the time that this is a problem, right? I think a lot of times people don't realize it or they don't see it unless you bring it to their attention, or they allow it to happen in a lot of different situations because they think if you kind of don't say anything, it'll keep you out of trouble. So for me, I started off with that non-brave spirit, lack of courage, or whatever else you want to kind of label it as. But I think it's more so I grew towards the more empowered Dr. Jones. As Dr. Jones, I'm going to speak up, even if it has nothing to do with me. If I see it, somebody else being, you know, associated with anything negative, I'm going to speak up for it. But, you know, adversities and challenges like these exist in all different spaces, even in the lab, troubleshooting for your project, an experiment actually failing, right? And you working for months on the same thing and it just, you know, crumbling in front of you. A lot of these challenges happen in a lot of different arenas. Publish or perish. A lot of people have no idea what that is, but it is a huge thing for scientists. In order to be an acclaimed scientist, you have to publish papers. You have to publish your work. You have to be known for finding something, discovering something in your research, whether it was basically saying this doesn't work or saying it did work and we were able to create this treatment, diagnosis, or whatever based on this research and experiment. Those things come with failure rates too, rejections, going and trying to find a position and having issues with that. But I think for me, the biggest thing was the challenges with the racial, ethnicity, and gender barriers is in being a neuroscientist and being in neuroscience. A lot of times I would go to these huge conferences and there'll be maybe 4 other African Americans there, and maybe one of them would be a female. So a lot of times you'll get discouraged in those spaces. So biggest advice I always say is keep yourself encouraged and keep people around who are going to motivate you to keep going, regardless if you're the only one sitting at the table that looks like you, and that's representing individuals that look like you. And then when you get to the space where you are trying to aspire to be at, find others that'll sit at the table with you. Dr. Stevenson and I, we collaborate on a lot of different programs with the thought in mind that we have struggled alone in a lot of spaces. So now we have the opportunity to make sure that others don't have to. And I think that's the most inspiring part of growing from that little girl who didn't have the courage to Dr. Jones, who makes sure that others who don't have the courage has an ally or finds a partner in me to be able to make sure they have somewhere to go and someone to look to kind of inspire them.
Thank you. Would anyone like to add anything about how to handle obstacles or setbacks?
I did want to add something.
Thank you.
So I think asking for help, knowing that it's okay to ask for help, is beneficial. And so also going back to what the previous presenter was saying, sometimes, yes, we are a minority, so sometimes we're alone in a space. But if you do find in the position that you do have a group, like a practical tip would be like in school, sometimes there are student associations, right? You could maybe join an African American Student Association, the Hispanic Student Association. I think there's strength in numbers. So when there are those possibilities, I have found them very helpful. At NASA, we also have employee resource groups. So I am in the Hispanic group. I am in a group for people with disabilities. I mean, yeah, if you can find groups to support you, I do think that goes a long way.
That's great.
I'll just add just something quickly. So one of the things that I find very challenging is being a woman in administration in academia, and definitely being a Black woman in administration in academia. But the beauty of working through some of the challenges that I have in this space is that I get to help scholars think about their growth and development as professionals in this space in the near future, right? And so for me, that is motivation to not be silent when things happen, to make sure that I speak up and fight for what is right, because if not for me, then for the people that come behind me. And even though it's hard, I'm not saying that it's easy, right? Most of the people here can attest to the fact that we do not publish our resume of failures. We don't publish our resumes of challenges, but we all have them, right? We have them. And so it is not easy. I'm not going to pretend that I haven't had nights of tears and nights of internalizing things and really trying to figure things out, but also the beauty of having friends and having allies, having colleagues that you can confide in, and knowing that not all the time do we have the answers, right? Because oftentimes you meet with people and you talk with people and all of you are thinking like, I don't know what the next steps are, but really to kind of, think about what happens next beyond you being in a space. And what that looks like is, the next person coming behind you. And so I think that's also why I use the quote, lift while I climb, because I recognize that if I do it in this space, then I give the charge to someone else to do it for the next person. And then hopefully they share that charge to do it for the next person. And so there's this, the gift that keeps on giving. So I say that to be honest, very much so like the other people who have shared that, the challenges will exist. We can't pretend that they're not there, but really thinking about, being bold and knowing that bold may not always work in your favor, but it will help you to think about navigating those spaces as a champion for someone else as you move forward.
That's great. Thank you. There is, I know, at least one more question I have, and maybe any of you who would like to jump on this one. And a shout out to the ladies who have shared their superpowers, both Hannah and Kylie. Thank you so much. Could any of the speakers talk about existing as a scientist outside of the lab? And I think you have all talked about that a little bit. This is from early on. I am having a difficult time accepting I might not want to spend my time in the lab when that has been my idea of what a scientist is for so many years. The hard question. Being a scientist outside of the lab. And I will say, Kellyanne, there's a picture behind you, and you were not in the lab, I think, when you were doing the science in that location.
That's true. I was trying to frame my thoughts here. So yes, science does not always occur in the lab. I did quite a bit of field work. We then had to take samples back to the lab to process them. But there's that element of, where do you find your joy, and what really makes the work worthwhile to you? We all need that restorative activity, what we do find joy in the day-to-day work to keep us going. But I also encourage you to take a look at what's going on with the world of computing. So even from the time I was in school to now, the way computers are used to do science has really changed so much. So that a lot of science is being done with computer models. And so if that's an area where you'd like to try to, look into coding and maybe contribute to either doing some science that way or some data analysis, that might be an interesting avenue to pursue. Again, it just comes back to, be curious and look for things that come your way. I didn't know instructional design was a career when I was in school, and now I get to be one. So you never know what you'll discover as you go along and explore these opportunities.
And I just wanted to add on that, just keep your experience base broad. Don't shut things out too much. You just never know when something is going to get added to your path. I mean, it's just, your journey is just never exactly the way you think it's going to be. And then also reach out to people you think are doing things that might be interesting. And most people are willing to give you at least a few minutes of their time to pass on what their journey was. And and I think that can help. And also professional societies sometimes will have some guidance in alternatives, like the Association for the American Advancement of Science has some information. Even back when I was a grad student, there was something called Dance Your PhD. And I thought that was really weird. Now I totally get it. So there's also policies, and there's just a lot of different ways to use science. And we need more and more people representing scientific thought in lots of different ways.
But if I can add on one more thing about that too, and I'm glad you said that. So I think the most important thing that I got from leaving the lab was you still have an incredible impact that you can impart on any position outside of a laboratory setting, using your background in whatever you've acquired over your time in your academic journey and your training, right? I left the lab and went to the American Society for Microbiology. 1 week after orientation, they shut down all the offices because of COVID-19. I was in charge of going through 300 to 500 papers a day to put scientific articles involving COVID-19 research into a depository, so that way the public could have a reliable source of information regarding research, the most updated research for this thing that was affecting us that we had no idea what it was, right? That was my first inclination, that regardless of where you're at as a scientist, you're going to make an incredible impact. And on top of that, of course, doing stuff with students on a yearly basis, I'm affecting 1,000 plus students every year, talking to them about my career, encouraging them towards STEM careers, mentoring, serving as a role model, whatever else. So there's so many ways to serve as an impact outside of the lab. Unfortunately, I don't think there's enough people that teach us these things as we're going through those journeys. But you have people here on the panel, and I'm sure a lot of us have our network that includes other individuals who could talk to you about those things. So definitely reach out and connect with us so we could talk more about that.
I think I've put everyone's websites into the chat, so do look. And I think Adrienne is going to close this out with some.
Yeah, so I just have one thing to add to that, and it kind of engages kind of all of the responses that have come from the other panelists, and that is to really think about what it is that you love, but also broaden your base as far as your experience, because there are things that you may think you do not like that might be the thing that connects you to what you love the most. I have students who tell me every day they want to be a doctor, right? That they want to be a lawyer, right? And then they get in a lab and fall in love with research. Or they get in a lab and say, research is something I never want to do. So you have to get your feet wet to really kind of think about what it is that you love or that you don't love. And you can't do that unless you experience it. So I say, again, similar to what other people have said, really broaden your experience base. Talk to people a lot. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask for help. And think about what your strengths are. What are your strengths? Do you love leadership? Do you love service? Do you love organizing things? Do you love planning things? And remember that science doesn't just live in a lab. You don't stop being a scientist because you do things outside of the lab. People think they lose that part of them because they're not in a lab. Like, oh, I'm no longer a scientist. Maybe I shouldn't introduce and engage in that way. No, as I said in my presentation, I am a scholar, a scientist, and a servant leader, and I engage and operate in those intersecting identities every day, right? And so just embrace those things, talk to people, learn new things, learn the things that you don't love. And as Dr. Jones and everyone else mentioned, reach out to people like us who've been there when we didn't know what we wanted to do, and use us as kind of soundboards to figure out what it is that you want to do.
Thank you, Adrienne, and thanks to all of you. In closing tonight, remember to think about what is your superpower. Thank you so much. Jeff, would you like to say something to say goodnight to the group?
It was a real pleasure to be here with everybody. I learned so much, and I'm leaving really inspired too. So thanks, Rita, for having me, and thanks for pulling this beautiful panel together.
Thanks to everyone, and Kylie and Hannah. You just keep going. It's been wonderful to be with you all tonight. And we look forward to sharing this. And all of you ladies, thank you so much. You know, it means a lot to me personally and professionally. And we're glad we're getting your word out to the rest of Queens and hopefully other places. So thanks, everyone. Remember, think about what your superpower is. And have a great night, everybody.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you all.
Thanks. Bye.